Thanks for joining us on Arirang News. I'm Kim Dami in Seoul. Seoul slammed Pyongyang and Moscow's forging a deeper partnership and says it's considering supplying arms to Ukraine, which Putin says would be a big mistake. South Korea called for the UN Security Council to control real and present cybersecurity threats head-on as the Council's rotating president. And Thursday's meeting marked the first official UNSC meeting on cybersecurity since June 2021. South Korea remains off a U.S. list of countries to have their foreign exchange policies monitored for the second straight time. Included in the latest list were 7 countries, including China and Japan. After North Korea and Russia inked a deal to mutually assist each other in the event of an attack, South Korea says it will re-examine the idea of a weapons support for Ukraine. Our correspondent Oh Soo-young starts us off.
South Korea will consider sending weapons support to Ukraine and slap extra sanctions on Russia as it condemns the Kremlin's pact with North Korea to strengthen military and economic ties. National Security Advisor Jang Ho-jin on Thursday delivered the South Korean government's stance after North Korean leader Kim Jong-un and Russian President Vladimir Putin met Wednesday in Pyongyang and agreed that in the event of war, they would provide one another with military and other assistance, with all means at disposal without delay. Jang said he sees any form of cooperation that provides direct or indirect support towards building up North Korea's military as a violation of United Nations Security Council sanctions, vowing a firm response.
Especially as a permanent member of the UN Security Council that led sanctions against North Korea, Russia's violation of its resolutions by supporting North Korea threatens our security and will inevitably harm Seoul-Moscow relations.
Since the outbreak of war in Ukraine in 2022, South Korea has maintained a policy of providing only humanitarian aid and non-lethal military supplies to Ukraine. Jang says the government will now reconsider that policy. A senior presidential official later told reporters he would not specify whether lethal weapons are being considered, but various options are being reviewed and will be revealed in time. Seoul also plans to strengthen its sanctions policy, targeting 243 new subjects, including 4 Russian ships, 5 organizations, and 8 North Korean individuals involved in weapons and oil exchanges between the two sides.
There are currently 1,159 items that are subject to export controls to Russia that have been used since the Ukraine war, but the government has decided to add 243 new items, so a total of 1,402 items will be subject to sanctions in the future.
Jang said the measures were decided during a regular National Security Council meeting after a review of Pyongyang and Moscow's Comprehensive Strategic Partnership Pact released on Thursday morning, but noted all specific details had not yet been fully grasped. While the North Korean leader declared the treaty raises their partnership to an alliance, the Russian president's more subdued remarks suggest otherwise. The treaty's controversial Article 4 on mutual assistance refers to their respective domestic laws and Article 51 of the UN Charter that recognizes a state's right to self-defense. This suggests the current pact may not trigger an immediate Allied intervention as a mutual defence treaty would, according to a senior official. In any case, Seoul says it will firmly respond to any actions threatening its security in cooperation with the international community and further reinforce the South Korea-US alliance and their trilateral cooperation with Japan to neutralise North Korea's nuclear and missile threats. Meanwhile, the US State Department on Thursday said it welcomes any support for Ukraine in fighting Russia's aggression, but the question of supplying weapons is each country's decision to make. Washington also expressed deep concern over Putin's threat to supply Pyongyang with weapons as a response to support for Kyiv, warning that such a move would destabilize the Korean peninsula. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News.
And Putin has warned South Korea that providing lethal weapons to Ukraine would be a big mistake, and said that Russia might supply high-precision weapons to North Korea. Our Choi Soo-hyung tells us more.
Russian President Vladimir Putin has warned that it will be a very big mistake if South Korea provides lethal weapons to Ukraine and that Russia will respond if it does. According to TASS and Sputnik news agencies, President Putin made this statement during a press conference in Hanoi, Vietnam on Thursday as he concluded his tour of North Korea and Vietnam. On the same day, South Korea's presidential office said it would reconsider the issue of providing weapons to Ukraine, criticizing the treaty and the comprehensive strategic partnership signed between North Korea and Russia. So far, the South Korean government has maintained a principle of not supplying lethal weapons to Ukraine. Regarding the northern Russia signing the treaty, Putin said there's nothing new compared to the one signed in the 1960s and that South Korea does not need to worry as the military assistance only applies when either one is attacked. Putin also mentioned that Moscow has not asked Pyongyang for any support for a special military operation in Ukraine. However, he added that Russia is currently monitoring the situation as Ukraine's attacks on the border area of Belgorod with Western long-range weapons are considered an invasion. He also said that Moscow does not rule out providing Pyongyang with high-precision weapons in response to Western countries providing weapons to Ukraine. The Russian president said that while the crisis on the Korean peninsula is heating up, he hopes the treaty with North Korea and Russia will have some deterrent effect. Cheon, Arirang News.
Troops from North Korea have once again intruded over the inter-Korean border. According to South Korea's Joint Chief of Staff on Friday, several soldiers from the north crossed the military demarcation line at around 11 a.m. the day before, while working within the central part of the demilitarized zone. They immediately returned north after the South Korean military fired warning shots and aired warning messages. Now, it's already the third crossing this month, with a similar intrusion on Tuesday and another around 2 weeks ago, when 20 to 30 troops appeared to get lost while digging soil and clearing wasteland in the DMZ. South Korea says that Thursday's border crossing appears to have been accidental, as was the case in both previous instances. South Korea has presided over the first UN Security Council meeting on cybersecurity in 3 years. And Seoul's Foreign Minister Cho called for the council to confront cybersecurity threats head-on. Lee Seung-ja has more.
The UN Security Council on Thursday convened an official meeting on cybersecurity, as North Korea has been relying on illicit cyber activities to evade UNSC sanctions and generate revenue to fund its nuclear and missile programs. The meeting is seen as being significant given rising tensions on the Korean peninsula, marking the first official UNSC meeting on the issue since June 2021. South Korean Foreign Minister Cho presided over the meeting as the council's rotating president. There, he said the council must confront real and present cybersecurity threats head-on, while stressing the UNSC's role in the fight.
The linkage of cyber threats and international peace and security is evident, and the Security Council has a key role to play in addressing cyber threats to fulfill its primary responsibility for maintenance of international peace and security.
Zhou said the cybersecurity threat posed by North Korea is nothing new, noting that the regime systematically evades sanctions adopted by the UNSC and challenges international non-proliferation through its illicit activities. The minister cited a report of the expert panel of the Security Council's North Korea Sanctions Committee, which found that North Korea has procured 40% of the funds for the development of weapons of mass destruction through illegal cyber activities. For the UNSC to tackle cyber threats, Zhou put forward a three-step approach of diagnosis, prescription, and treatment to respond to cybersecurity-related issues. South Korea, the United States, and Japan hosted an informal UNSC meeting in April on North Korea's evolving cyber threats. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
The 2024 UN Public Service Forum, where various countries gathered to share innovative examples of public service, will be held in the city of Incheon for 3 days starting on Monday. This is the first time in 10 years that South Korea is hosting the event, and also the first time in 5 years that the forum will be held face-to-face due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Under the theme of fostering innovation amid global challenges, a public sector perspective, over 2,000 participants from more than 100 countries will gather to look at what's needed to develop tangible actions for innovation and transformation at the local and national levels. The event will also feature an exhibition hall with UN and Korea zones, as well as Korean cultural booths. South Korea has not been named on a U.S. Treasury Department list of countries to monitor their foreign exchange policies for the second straight time. The U.S. Treasury Department released its semi-annual report to Congress on macroeconomic and foreign exchange policies of major trading partners of the U.S. on Thursday, which includes China, Japan, Taiwan, and Germany, among other countries. The countries are put on the list when they meet 2 of 3 criteria, including a bilateral trade surplus with the U.S. of at least $15 billion and persistent one-sided intervention in the foreign currency market. South Korea had been on the list since 2016 until it was excluded from the last report published in November. South Korea's producer prices rose once again in May, backed by higher prices of services and industrial energy bills. Data released from the Bank of Korea on Friday shows that the producer price index, a key inflation indicator, rose 0.1% in May compared to the previous month. Now, while the rise is lower than last month, it's the 6th consecutive month since December last year that the figure has seen an on-month increase. While wholesale prices of agricultural, forestry, and fisheries products fell compared to the month before, prices of services and industrial energy bills were each up 0.5%. President Yoon Suk-yeol was back on the road again on Thursday to host a policy discussion after more than a month's pause due to diplomatic events. The first stop was Gyeongsangbuk-do Province. Our Kim Do-yeon has the details.
Gyeongsangbuk-do Province as Northeast Asia's manufacturing innovation hub. That was the topic of President Yoon Suk-yeol's 26th policy discussion with citizens on Thursday at the province's Yeongnam University. Among the many things that President Yoon pledged to make this happen were improvements to the underdeveloped transportation infrastructure.
교통 인프라 확충은 경북의 제조 혁신 허브로의 도약을 위해서 반드시 필요하고 또 도민들의 삶의 질 향상에도 필수적입니다. 먼저 사업계획 검토 막바지 단계인 3조 4천억 규모의 영일만 횡단 고속도로 건설을 빠르게 추진하겠습니다.
This would connect 2 different ports in Pohang, the nation's steel mill city on the east coast. It'll be 18 kilometers long and will contain bridges. On top of this, President Yoon has pledged to support the establishment of a 300 billion won, or around $260 million industrial complex for SMRs, or small modular reactors, in Gyeongju, another city in the province. The new type of nuclear energy technology is being sought after by countries around the world to get ahead in the technology, and President Yoon is looking to make Gyeongju the nation's SMR manufacturing hub. He also pledged to support the region's hydrogen energy production sectors, tourism, as well as agricultural business. Meanwhile, President Yoon praised the region for its history of providing a basis for the nation's economic success. The region is where the Saemaeul Undong came from, a community-driven development program in the 70s when it was still battling poverty, a movement that has been credited as making the miracle on the Hangang River possible. In fact, Yeongnam University has a department dedicated to studying the movement and international development, with many up-and-coming African young students coming to learn about it. This was brought up during the recent Korea-Africa Summit as well.
새마을 운동과 우리의 발전 경험을 학문화한 영남대의 새마을 학은 지난 한아프리카 정상회의에서도 각국 정상들에게 많은 관심과 주목을 받았습니다. 많은 국가의 리더들이 또 리더가 될 청년들이 이곳에서 국가 발전에 관한 공부를 하고 큰 기여를 했다는 얘기를 아프리카 각국 정상들에게 많이 들었습니다.
This 26th policy discussion was participated by around 100 government officials and citizens, including business leaders in hydrogen and nuclear energy, entrepreneurs, and local residents. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News.
South Korea's electricity prices will remain unchanged in the third quarter of this year. At a meeting of the Korea Electric Power Corporation to decide rates for the next quarter on Friday, it was decided that the fuel cost adjustment unit price would remain at plus 5 Korean won per kilowatt hour through July to September. This decision comes as KEPCO's total debt remains high since the Ukraine war led to soaring energy prices that were slow to be reflected in domestic consumer prices. Fuel price adjustments in South Korea are determined in the range of plus or minus 5 won per kilowatt hour, with adjustments made on the 21st of the month to reflect energy prices before the start of next quarter. Amid the prolonged medical dispute, the government has announced its plans to create a new medical supply system, which will be set by September. Yoon has this report.
The medical dispute continues in South Korea with no breakthrough between the government and the medical community. And on Thursday, the Presidential Special Committee on Medical Reform held its fourth meeting. It announced its plans for a new two-step system to manage the supply of medical personnel by September. According to Chief Do Yeon-hong, there will be two special committees. One comprised of experts that will discuss the supply of medical professionals, which will then report to the decision-making body. The second is the final decision-making body, which will be led by the health minister.
Conducting estimates through research as needed for the supply of medical personnel and workforce policy decisions has frequently resulted in social conflicts. Therefore, the committee has agreed to systematize the decision-making processes to enhance rationality and societal trust in healthcare workforce policies.
These organizations will address workforce policies, including adjustments to university enrollments, which have been a long-held point of dispute between the government and the medical community. Opposing the government's plan to expand the medical school quota, medical professors at Seoul National University Hospital and its affiliate hospitals began an indefinite walkout on Monday. An emergency committee from the hospitals held a meeting on Thursday to vote on whether to continue the strike into next week. The health ministry, during a briefing on Thursday morning, urged the Korean Medical Association to reconsider its indefinite strike starting on June 27th and resolve issues through dialogue with the government. The walkout plan, announced by the Korean Medical Association on Tuesday by its president, Lee, however, is facing criticism within other areas of the medical community, calling it a unilateral decision, including the Korean Intern Resident Association. Meanwhile, the Korean Medical Association held a press conference on Thursday, announcing the establishment of a countermeasure committee encompassing all doctor associations. They stated that unless there is a change in the government's stance on the demands, an indefinite strike will be discussed on the 22nd, during which the first meeting will be held. The Korea Severe Disease Association on the same day requested the government hold a public hearing to discuss the deployment of doctors with foreign licenses to provide medical services in the country. Yoon, Arirang News.
A record number of passengers flew between South Korea and Japan from January to May this year due to a weak yen and a surge in the number of flights from Korea to Japan. According to data released by the Transport Ministry on Friday, the figure reached 10 million, nearly double compared to the same period last year. The figure is also the highest since the data was first compiled in 2009. The number of flights to Japan offered by Korean Airlines jumped by nearly 40% on year. And South Korea's Jeju Island is one of the most popular tourist destinations among locals. Now, the island is looking to attract more foreign tourists with its special interest tours. Our Park Kwon tells us more.
Popular tourist destination Jeju Island has big plans to grab the attention of foreign tourists by offering a diverse range of activities. Data from the Jeju Tourism Organization showed that from January to April 2024, there was a nearly 440% increase in the number of foreign tourists on year. And to coincide with the boost in tourist numbers, Jeju is preparing to launch several special interest tours, or SITs, with a wide variety of activities, including golf, horse riding, cycling, and more. As part of a pre-release program, Jeju has been running familiarization tours since March for people working in the tourism industry, as well as members of activity clubs from different countries. The tour I joined included people developing tourism programs for Chinese youngsters. An official I spoke to said the program was developed under the terms of the joint declaration from the recent trilateral summit between Korea, Japan, and China, which aims to increase personal exchanges between teenagers from those countries. I'm out at sea near Jeju Island on an exciting yacht ride taking in the sea air. This is just one part of the island's special interest tour that's soon to be launched. Two Haenyeo women, divers who harvest seafood without the use of breeding apparatus, were also on board as part of the tour for tourists to learn more about Haenyeo culture. During this trip, they returned from their dive with seaweed and sea urchins to share with the group.
I hope a lot of foreign people come and see for themselves and know more about Haenyos.
Kayaking in a transparent kayak on the emerald-colored sea and racing down 3 different tracks in electric carts were also part of the tour program. There was also a guided tour of Yongmori Beach and its dragon head-shaped cliff made by the volcano, which aims to add educational value for youngsters that will participate in the special interest tours in the near future.
Jeju travel used to be shopping-oriented, but has been changing to an experience-oriented thing, like visiting restaurants. It's good so that people can experience Jeju culture, food, and customs in depth.
As Jeju aims to bring in many more foreign tourists from different countries, eyes are on whether these special interest tours will add vitality to the region's tourism. 박건우, Arirang News, Jeju.
Let's take a look at the latest news in the world now. Dutch Prime Minister Mark Rutte is set to become the next Secretary General of NATO following the withdrawal of the only other candidate in the race. 57-year-old Rutte officially became the only candidate left to replace the incumbent NATO chief Jens Stoltenberg after Romanian President Klaus Iohannis withdrew his bid at the end of last week. Stoltenberg's term as the chief of the military alliance expires in October, 10 years after he took office in 2014. Rutte, who served as the Dutch Prime Minister for almost 14 years, put his name down for NATO's top job in the wake of the collapse of his coalition government last summer. He is a fierce critic of the Russian President Vladimir Putin and has been actively promoting Europe's military support for Ukraine since 2022. Moving over to India, at least 36 people died and more than 60 have been admitted to hospital as of Thursday after consuming illicit tainted liquor sold in the country's southern state of Tamil Nadu. According to a government spokesperson, since Wednesday, over 100 people have been suffering from stomach aches, diarrhea and vomiting and required medical treatment. Police arrested a 49-year-old man named Govindaraj for producing and selling the illicit liquor, seizing some 200 litres of it. The Tamil Nadu state government has also suspended at least 10 officials, including the police chief and the district's collector. The illegally produced tainted alcohol is commonplace in India, where many cannot afford branded spirits. Last year, more than a dozen people died in a similar incident. Now to the US, where a wildfire in the state of New Mexico continued to burn out of control on Thursday, despite efforts from firefighters dropping water and fire retardant from the air and bringing in heavy equipment to construct fire lines. Local police said Wednesday there had been at least 2 fatalities, including one unidentified person found in the driver's seat of a scorched vehicle. The state's governor confirmed on the same day that over 1,400 structures, including homes, were destroyed in the southern part of the state. She also requested a major disaster declaration from President Joe Biden for the fires, which have burned up almost 100 square kilometers of land. The United Kingdom's King Charles and Queen Camilla attended Day 3 of Royal Ascot on Thursday, one of the highlights of the summer social calendar in Great Britain. The royal couple arrived in a carriage during the royal procession for the horse racing event, which is beloved by Charles's late mother, Queen Elizabeth II. The Royal Ascot horse racing event, usually highlighted by the spectators' traditional classic fashion, was founded in 1711 by Queen Anne. The popular luxury event, held at the Berkshire Racecourse, is expected to draw more than 250,000 spectators from all over the world and will run until Saturday. Kim Seong, Arirang News.
Good afternoon. The scorching heat wave in central regions and Jeollabuk-do continues on this summer solstice. While parts of Gyeonggi-do, including Goyang, are under a heat wave warning. Meanwhile, southern provinces got nice relief yesterday, but afternoon highs returned right back to the 30s this afternoon. So Seoul gets up to 34 degrees, Gwangju topping out at 31 under mostly sunny skies with strong UV rays during the day. Meanwhile, monsoon rain takes a break on Jeju today with a high of 28 degrees Celsius. But rain returns to Jeju early tomorrow, dropping up to 200 millimeters of heavy showers into Sunday. The south coast will also see downpours. Now, the monsoon season also starts in southern parts of the country this weekend, with 10 to 60 millimeters of showers in the forecast for Gyeongsangbuk-do Provinces. It's not going to rain in the capital over the weekend, but showers will bring much needed heat relief to the central parts of the country. And then the new week starts on a rainy note in the capital and Gangwon province. With that in mind, let's take a look at the international weather conditions.
That is all we have at this hour. Arirang News will be back at 2 p.m. Korea time. Thanks for watching.